Dr. Prasad is a world-renowned expert. He's the first person in the world to earn a PhD in radiation biology. He was mentored by Dr. Linus Pauling, the only American to win the Nobel Prize twice. He holds a patent on micronutrients and radiation protection. He worked with NASA and the Russian Federation on radiation studies, studying radiation and micronutrients and how it could help astronauts. He was the president of the National Society for Cancer and Nutrition, member of the Royal Society of Medicine in London and England, invited by the Nobel Prize nominating committee to nominate a candidate in medicine. He's published over 250 peer-reviewed articles and 29 books on micronutrients, radiation, and other health-related issues. He truly is an expert in this field of EMF radiation. So we're going to have a discussion, a quick discussion with him about the threats of radiation, EMF radiation, and what has changed in the world where we need to be worried about it. Well, the main change that's happening is, if you look at back in 1981 when cell phones first rolled out, we started with what they call 1G, or the first generation. At that time, the cellular networks had 0 to 400 megahertz of power. Now, as you look at the evolution over the last almost 40 years, we've gone from 1G all the way to 5G, and 5G that they're rolling out right now is 667 times more powerful than what 1G originally was. And it's this magnitude, this huge magnitude of increase in power, that's something that we should all be concerned about and thinking about. So let's talk about big business in 5G. You know, businesses are about making money. Big business is about making big money. What has his historical game plan been for these big businesses when they have things like 5G rolling out? Well, I would liken it to like tobacco. You know, initially the big business denied that tobacco was a health hazard. They denied it for decades. They were running advertisements. The doctors recommended smoking. Ultimately, big business had to admit that smoking was a danger, but that was only after hundreds of millions of people became addicted, and literally tens of millions of people died, and even today, millions more people are dying. Another example is the opioid crisis that we're facing right now. You know, Big Pharma, they sold opioids knowing that they were highly addictive. They denied that there was any health hazard for decades. Ultimately, they had to admit that there was danger after tens of millions of people became addicted. You know, big business's game plan is really simple, and that is, it's the same in 5G as what they've done with these other industries that we know are today now know are dangerous. Let's look at companies AT&T, Verizon, Qualcomm, Huawei. What are they saying about the health risks of 5G? We've done research, and we really can't see them saying anything other than they're following government standards. Why are they not addressing the concerns that we all have with this huge increase in power of 5G and what it could do to our health? The government position on 5G, it's well established, and on EMF radiation, you can go to the FDA, the FCC, or the CDC website. We encourage you to do your own research from what the government is saying. Go to their websites, read it. Frankly, I think you'll be quite surprised what they're saying. In summary, what's big business's approach to 5G? Well, it's the same approach they've taken with other health hazards to human health. First, they deny there's a problem. They provide inadequate funding to find the truth. And the ultimate consequence is that we become the experiment. And so today we want to talk with Dr. Prasad real quickly about what are you going to do? What are we going to do as the experiment? Some really important science has come out. Scientific American in October, they said that we have no reason to believe 5G is safe. They said that the FCC standards were created in the 1980s and that there's a preponderance of peer-reviewed research, more than 500 studies that have found 2G and 3G EMF radiation to be of concern. Dr. Prasad, what's your perspective now that 5G is rolling out when all the science we pretty much have that says 2 and 3G are harmful? What's your position or perspective on that?
Already there are several publications on 2G and 3G EMF radiation showing that it causes damage, not only increase the risk of cancer, but also damages neuronal function. And so you have a lot of neurological abnormality observed within short time.
Well, Dr. Prasad, I know that, I mean, you're a world-renowned scientist, but you're not alone on this Scientific American talked about 240 scientists who've published peer-reviewed research, much like what you've published. And those scientists have come together and they've signed an international EMF scientist appeal, asking for more research and limits on our exposure as humans to these increasingly powerful levels of EMF radiation. In fact, the World Health Organization, they've classified EMF radiation as a possible carcinogenic to humans. They did this back way in 2011 before there was even any 5G really even conceptualized. They also have science that shows that EMF radiation splits DNA strands within our cells, and the cancer rates can be up to 3 times higher in people with high exposure to this type of EMF radiation. The National Toxicology Program, funded by the U.S. Department of Health, did a $30 million study that found clear evidence that 2 years of exposure to cell phone EMF radiation increased cancer in male rats and damaged the DNA in rats and mice of both sexes. Now, Dr. Prasad, you've taught me that rats and mice are much less sensitive than the human body is to EMF radiation. So what would be your interpretation of this kind of science?
Yeah, if this kind of study produces cancer in animal and rat, you can be sure that in human, and don't forget that these studies have been performed at much lower frequency and energy than the 5G. And therefore, it is possible that 5G will have a much more remarkable effect, not only in the rat and mice, but also in human, because humans generally are more sensitive to any kind of radiation, whether it is ionizing radiation or EMF radiation. And therefore, you will see that exposure to 5G may have further increased health risk than we have observed with 2 and 3G.
Well, you know, Dr. Prasad, the International Agency for Research in Cancer, funded by the World Health Organization, they have defined EMF radiation as a Group B possible human carcinogen. You know, your expertise is in biology and radiation. As the world's first radiation biologist, you have a strong understanding of the health consequences of exposure to EMF radiation. Why don't you help educate us on what the potential risks we're really facing with this 5G rollout is?
These studies that I will discuss have been performed in the energy range of 2 and 3G. And from there you can extrapolate that 5G will be much more damaging than 2 and 3 generations EMF radiation. First is the acute neurological abnormalities. And you can see that one of them is a hypersensitivity syndrome. And this syndrome involves headache, dizziness, balancing problem, sleep disturbances, depression, emotional problems, fatigue, irritable behavior, lack of focus, and confusion. Acute non-neurological abnormalities include DNA damage to your tissue and also damage to the sperms and testes. It also will damage heart and brain function. Late neurological abnormality includes cognitive dysfunction, tinnitus, and increased sensitivity to noise and attention deficit. These are the late effects. The late effect, which appear a few years later, includes non-neurological abnormalities such as brain cancer. An example of brain cancers are glioma, acoustic neuroma, and meningioma, as well as breast cancer.
Now, Dr. Prasad, this isn't stuff that you just kind of pulled out of thin air. I know you're a very serious scientist. You've been published in some of the most prestigious journals in the world. This is data you've pulled from published data that really anybody could read. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, those health consequences you shared talked about both short and long-term consequences. I was really shocked when you shared this information where how quickly EMF radiation can impact the human body.
Yeah, here is a couple of examples. Exposure to EMF radiations for only 50 minutes increase the risk of dementia. Even exposure to 5 minutes to high level of EMF radiation increase the risk of working memory in older individuals over 60 years. Even a young woman who kept her cell phone in their bra for 10 hours per day for several years developed invasive breast cancer.
Now, these are pretty concerning bits of information about what EMF radiation can do to our body. And you have some really great sources on this also.
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Prasad, I know you're really concerned about the youth and the potential risk to them with this EMF radiation also. Children and adolescents have a greater sensitivity to EMF radiation than adults. And there's this chart here, there's a study here that shows the impact of holding a mobile phone next to your brain. The chart that shows the large area in red, that's from a 5-year-old who has a skull thickness of just 5.5 millimeters. The middle one is from a 10-year-old, and the one on the end is from an adult. This study was done by the electrical engineers and published in the journal Microwave Theory. Dr. Prasad, what does this tell you when 2 and 3G is causing this kind of impact on the brain, and now we'll be looking at 5G?
This shows that the reason the children are more sensitive than the adult to EMF radiation because it can absorb much more energy than the adult. And considering if there is a 5G mobile phone, then it will be much more damaging because it will absorb much more energy than what is being shown here, which is 4.4 watts per kilogram.
Now, Dr. Prasad, I know you have a special defense strategy against EMF radiation. A lot of people have asked, can you shield your body from EMF radiation from the outside? And what is your perspective on that?
It is not possible. First, it is everywhere. And second, you can block the electrical field radiations by shielding, physical shielding by metals, but you cannot block magnetic field shielding by metal. And therefore, it is very difficult to have a shield around you so that you can protect against electromagnetic radiations, because electromagnetic radiation has both electrical as well as magnetic radiation. EMF radiation is not like X-ray that we are occasionally exposed to, and EMF radiation is everywhere in our homes, in our workplace. Therefore, we live in a way EMF radiation soup.
Well, Dr. Prasad, I know that because EMF radiation and 5G radiation is everywhere, you developed a special EMF radiation defense solution. I want to talk a little bit about that. You have a philosophy, and you've got the science that demonstrates and supports this idea of protecting your body from the inside out at the cellular level with unique micronutrients. I know your science is supported by 14 clinical trials. You did a study on radiation with NASA and the Russian Federation. You also were awarded a patent on micronutrients and radiation based on the science that you were able to conduct on radiation and micronutrients. And even today, you have a new patent pending, which I think is pretty exciting. And I want to introduce people to this new patent pending formulation and product that you've developed. This product is called Micro Daily EMF, and it's Dr. Prasad's solution to help us defend against EMF radiation. It's a patent pending micronutrient formulation. It's called Micro Daily EMF. It's a very special product. It promotes 5G protection, EMF radiation defense. It promotes anti-inflammation response, immune system health, DNA integrity and health, anti-aging, increased in energy, and it really boosts your natural cellular defenses. There's some special protective micronutrients in this formulation based on Dr. Prasad's lifetime of research. His research has shown that vitamin A, C, E, combined with resveratrol, curcumin, green tea, quercetin, CoQ10, N-acetylcysteine, alpha-lipoic acid, and selenium, along with beta-carotene, that these work in harmony and in in connection with your body to really boost your ability to, from the inside out, have a defense against 5G. Dr. Prasad, what would you like to say about these ingredients of the special formulation that you've developed?
Yeah, I think, for example, individual antioxidant has already been shown to protect against EMF radiation as well as against ionizing radiation like X-ray and gamma ray. But the reason we combine all these together, because they work by different way in reducing the damage produced by EMF radiation, for example, oxidative damage as well as inflammation. And therefore we decided that instead of using a 1 or 2 micronutrient, you have to have a comprehensive mixture of various antioxidants which work on a different part of the cell and different way of acting and so on.